What's going on, movie fans? Welcome to episode 13 of the Real Takes podcast here on WSVC Radio. I'm your host, Dan Sisk. I'm finally back from spring break. I hope everyone had a lovely couple weeks. Grave apologies on my part for not getting an episode recorded prior to break. I was planning on recording Sunday, what would that be, February 23rd, and review The Monkey from Osgood Perkins, but stuff came up with school as well as other people within the radio team, so I was unable to record, but I'm back now, so I will be circling back to review The Monkey, and I'll also be offering my thoughts on the movie that I did check out over break, which is Mickey 17, so those will be the two films that we're talking about today. So let's just get started with The Monkey so that you guys don't have to wait any longer for my thoughts on it. So this is the new film written and directed by Osgood Perkins. This is the man who directed Longlegs last summer with Nick Cage and Micah Monroe, and I really enjoyed that movie. I just rewatched that also over break. Really holds up. I like it a lot. This stars Theo James, Tatiana Maslany, Christian Convery, Rohan Campbell, Adam Scott, and Elijah Wood. But despite the extensive cast, this really is just the Theo James show. And we'll get to him in a second, but he does a great job. So I was intrigued by this movie. I thought the trailer was absolutely amazing. It set up the concept of Theo James playing twin brothers who have become estranged over a long period of time, but then reunite because they realize that a toy monkey that cursed their childhood has returned and is causing random deaths around them. So the two brothers come back together to try to take out this monkey. And I thought the trailer for this was amazing. I was really intrigued by Perkins leaning into the dark humor that I felt was criminally underutilized in Longlegs. I thought the dark humor in Longlegs was great, and there wasn't enough of that. So I thought that the monkey leaning into that entirely was a really exciting prospect. And as I've been saying on this podcast, I've been really very much enjoying the horror genre over the last year and a half, because you're getting some of the most creative, innovative, and wildly original stories that you can find in cinema right now through the horror genre. This isn't an original story like Longlegs was. This is an adaptation of a Stephen King short story from, I believe, the early 80s is when it was published. And Perkins made some changes to that story, which I'll get to in just a second. But overall, I think this movie is pretty good. I don't think it reaches the heights of something like Longlegs. I do think this is a step down. However, I still thought it was a really solid time at the movies. I thought it was incredibly emotional and very personal to the director for a myriad of reasons, and I thought the ending was one of the best of the year. I enjoyed the movie a lot. So I guess we'll start off with Osgood Perkins' approach to this material. He took a very campy approach to this story, which is in stark contrast to the Stephen King short story, which is very much a dark and broody kind of narrative. And upon reading an interview with Perkins where he kind of broke down his approach to this script, I was very moved by what I was reading. Essentially, Perkins was introduced to this material through a script that had already been written by someone who James Wan had hired. James Wan, very well-known writer, director, producer within the horror genre. A lot of you probably know him the most for those awful Aquaman movies that he directed a few years ago. But James Wan is a producer on The Monkey, and he had already gotten a script together for Perkins to direct, but Perkins chose to rewrite the whole thing and go with a campy tone because of a very personal story, which I'll get into right now. Both of his parents, he explained in this interview I read, died in very mysterious and abnormal ways. His father died of AIDS, and his mother was on the plane that hit the North Tower on September 11th. So he kind of went through a horrible circumstance related to his parents dying twice. And he said that when someone like him has undergone so much death and has suffered through so much loss, all you can really do is smile and laugh. And I thought that was heartbreaking personally, and it really added a lot more context to the monkey. And that's why I'm telling you this story now, because I feel that knowing that context is integral to enjoying this film the way that Perkins really wants you to. I saw a lot of reviews when this came out complaining that the movie was soulless, that it had no heart, there was nothing for the audience to latch onto. I truly don't understand what the audience, what those people were watching, because I think this is, if you can't see that this is an incredibly cathartic film for the writer and director, then I can't help you, and you really should. And then and let's put it this way: your media literacy needs assistance. I thought Perkins really delivered on the camp tone. Obviously, not all the jokes worked, but when they worked, I was belly laughing substantially. It really is well done, and it's not afraid to go dark when it needs to. It's willing to get serious when it needs to. The ending that I loved is very serious, and tackles some very heavy subject matter that is very, again, cathartic to Osgood Perkins. And I think that emotion really makes this movie not on the level of Longlegs, but a very memorable experience that I won't be forgetting anytime soon. The acting is very strong. Theo James, I never thought that he would become a legit actor. I saw the first two Divergent movies way back when they came out. Like the books, I thought they sucked, if I'm being totally honest with you, and I thought he sucked in them. I never understood why Hollywood was trying to push him. But after watching him in The White Lotus Season 2, the season in Sicily, and now this, as well as The Gentleman TV series from Guy Ritchie last year on Netflix. He was very good in that as well. He's becoming a legitimate actor, and I am impressed with how his career has turned around, because I thought he would just be nothing more than a talentless heartthrob, and he's turned out to be a really, really respectable actor. I liked him a lot, and White Lotus is where he really impressed me, but this might be his best performance. He's very, very good. Tatiana Maslany plays the twins' mother, and I can't tell you anything about her role, but she makes a strong impression. Christian Convery plays the younger versions of Theo James's twins. And I thought Convery from Sweet Tooth on Netflix, another very good show that you should watch, I thought Convery did a very nice job. Colin O'Brien, this is the actor I forgot to mention. Colin O'Brien is playing Theo James, one of the twins' sons. And he has a lot of, he's basically the foil for the more sympathetic twin. And he does a nice job as well. I liked his performance quite a bit. This movie is incredibly violent. However, it never got to a point where I was wincing or had to look away from the screen, because it was done in such a cartoonish way, intentionally so. The deaths become legitimately hysterical as we keep going, because they just get so cartoonish and so silly and so over the top. And that's the tone that Perkins is going for. So while it does get violent, I honestly feel that if you aren't super into gore, this movie will be palatable for you, because it's not done with any malice whatsoever. That's really all I'm going to say, because this movie has a lot to spoil. I did not see a lot of the stuff coming, and I don't even want to hint at what the ending is, because I thought the ending was incredible, and I don't want to spoil that for you. But overall, again, sorry I'm late on this one. Should still be in theaters near you. I would check it out. There's a chance you don't like it if the tone doesn't work for you, and if you just can't see the emotion that Perkins is really permeating this movie with. But as someone who has really fallen in love with the horror genre in recent months because of its consistent, innovative qualities, I thought this was a refreshing change of pace. Not as good as Longlegs, but a really, really respectable follow-up. And Osgood Perkins has another movie coming up later this year called Keeper. He filmed another movie. It comes out in October, and I will be there day one because Perkins has my trust. I think he's one of the more interesting, probably not one of the absolute best, but certainly one of the most interesting horror auteurs that are currently working. So, yeah, The Monkey, not a high recommend for me, but if you are into movies and you're into more experimental genre blends, I would give this a whirl. It's definitely an interesting watch. At this point, you're probably going to wait for streaming, but it's worth your time. Okay, so that is The Monkey. We're going to move on to Mickey 17. This is the new sci-fi dark comedy from writer-director Bong Joon-ho. I have a lot to say about him coming up. The movie stars Robert Pattinson, Naomi Ackie, Mark Ruffalo, Toni Collette, and Steven Yeun. So the setup here is that Robert Pattinson is playing a man named Mickey who joins a space colony on a planet called Niflheim, and he signs up as an expendable. So he's basically viewed as a worker who is able to be easily disposed because he can get cloned every time he dies. So he dies for research purposes on Niflheim, and as scientists learn about the planet, they kill off the clones that are no longer necessary. And so we follow basically Mickey 17, the 17th clone, who is, again, our main protagonist, and runs into some interesting, let's say, problems when another clone of his, Mickey 18, shockingly appears. So I was pretty much entirely interested in this movie because of Bong Joon-ho. If any of you do not know that name, he is the writer-director of Parasite, which came out in 2019, won Best Picture, won Best Director, won Best Original Screenplay, alongside a couple of others below-the-line awards. I would consider Parasite to be probably the best movie of the 21st century. That movie is so good, so well written, so well made, so well acted, that I truly believe it is a must-watch for anyone who is even remotely interested in movies. It is in subtitles. He did make it in Korea, but I hope no one here has issues with subtitles, because you would miss a lot of incredible movies by refusing to watch films with subtitles. But it is all in Korean. That being said, the movie is still absolutely remarkable, and I couldn't give it a higher recommendation. So I was very much in love with that movie, so I was very interested in what Bong Joon-ho had coming up. He is returning to America to make this movie. Obviously, all the actors I just gave you are Americans. He has made movies in America before, specifically Snowpiercer and Okja, and I thought both of those movies, while not perfect, were very, very good sci-fi films that had a lot to say about class warfare and capitalism. So I was interested in this movie, even though the trailers, I'll be honest with you, the trailers for Mickey 17 did not do much for me. I didn't think they looked great. And another big warning sign was that this movie filmed years ago, and it's been on the shelf at Warner Brothers in a vault somewhere for I believe a year and a half, the completed cut. So I was very nervous, to be honest with you, going in, because I didn't know how, I didn't know if the delay would end up being a reflection of the quality. And unfortunately, the delay is a reflection of the quality. I don't think the movie's bad. I don't think it's terrible, but the film thematically is all over the place. It has every idea that you can possibly conceive thrown into this stew, and nothing is able to be digested by the viewer because there's just too much. The movie tries to be about capitalism. It tries to be about colonialism. It tries to be about the ethical and moral implications of cloning. It's trying to be about politics. It's trying to be about religion. And it simply does not have the time to break down any of those themes, because they're all trying to share screen time here. And even with the 2 hour and 20-minute runtime, no theme is able to be let's put it this way: no theme is given the deep dive that it deserves. And another real problem with this movie is that a lot of the themes here I've seen done before, and I've seen done incredibly well. So from that perspective, the movie feels very familiar. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Duncan Jones's debut, Moon. I believe it came out in 2008 or 2009. It stars Sam Rockwell, and he's playing multiple clones who are exploited by a company. And that movie is far more concise, far more focused, and therefore far more interesting and engaging for me. This movie reminded me of Moon. It reminded me of Okja, which is also about capitalism. There, the food industry here has the sci-fi twist of cloning. But I felt that this was derivative of Bong Joon-ho's other movies. So, when you factor in the derivative nature of it and the fact that the script's overstuffed, I found this to be a huge disappointment when it comes to Bong Joon-ho's overall filmography. But I do think that there are interesting ideas related to these themes peppered throughout the film that you should see at some point, but this is not a movie that you need to see in theaters. This movie does not demand the big screen whatsoever. If there is any movie that is a streaming film through and through, it is Mickey 17. Let's talk about the acting. Robert Pattinson is very, very good here. I have loved him since Good Time, a movie that came out a long time ago. I believe at this point, close to 10 years ago. It was a crime drama he made. Really small movie, but he blew me away in Good Time. And ever since then, he's been building himself a very, very respectable career. From The Lighthouse to Batman to this. He plays multiple characters, and he has to convince you that they are iterations of the same person while also differentiating them. And I thought Pattinson did a very, very good job in that regard. Mark Ruffalo gives probably the worst performance that I'm going to watch in the year of our Lord 2025. He is trying to do a take on Elon Musk or Trump, and it just does not work. It rings so hollow. It rings so false. I thought he was absolutely horrible. And Colette is doing a more muted version of that. I did think she was a little better than Ruffalo, but Colette also did not impress me whatsoever. Every other supporting actor in this movie, including Aki and Yoon, kind of just come into the movie here and there and disappear when they aren't needed. So it kind of creates a little bit. It really is the Robert Pattinson show. You're going for him. He's excellent. But the script is just, it just does not do him any favors. It's just underwritten characters. It's just, the movie's a mess. And I feel bad for saying that because I was so excited for this, despite my issues with the trailers, solely because of Bong Joon-ho's name and solely because I loved Parasite so much. But I found this movie to be a real letdown. And another ding for original science fiction. I've been a huge proponent of getting original sci-fi into the theaters because I feel this stuff. I love original science fiction. I love the science fiction genre. I love the conversations that it can spark. And a lot of the recent ones from Chappie, Neil Blomkamp's action movie, The Creator a couple years ago, a movie I loved but no one saw it. Now this bombed. Mickey 17 bombed in theaters over the weekend. It's just created a situation where science fiction movies are not going to get the respect that they deserve because none of them are going to be given big budgets due to consistent box office failure. And that's definitely a sad kind of side effect from this movie not doing well. But at the same time, I can't blame audiences for skipping Mickey 17 because the movie's just not good enough for their time and their efforts. So, yeah, definitely a letdown for me, Mickey 17. But if you're a fan of science fiction and you're a fan of Bong Joon-ho and you're a fan of dark comedy, I would give this a chance on streaming. But I would plan to watch it over multiple days because I would be surprised if you were able to get through it in one sitting. But we'll see. There are interesting elements that I am glad I saw. Great scenes peppered throughout that I am glad I saw. But as a whole, it doesn't come together. So, disappointing, but it is what it is. So, that's it for this episode of the Real Takes podcast. Again, really glad to be back. Sorry for the delay on the monkey once more. But again, life happens. So the plan next week's episode, I will be seeing Novocaine. the new action comedy starring Jack Quaid as a man who cannot feel physical pain. I thought this movie looked terrible from the trailers, but the early reviews are incredibly positive, so they have piqued my interest. So I will be checking out Novocaine. I will also be going to see Black Bag. This is the new Steven Soderbergh spy thriller starring Cate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender. Steven Soderbergh, obviously very well-known auteur, and he's just coming off of Presence 2 months ago, which is one of my favorite movies so far this year. Fantastic horror drama there. So Black Bag, also very strong reviews early on, and I'm very interested in seeing that. So we'll be doing Novocaine and Black Bag next week. Very excited to talk about both of those movies, especially because they'll be relatively fresh. I think we're in the need. I think personally, I feel we're in the need for a spy thriller and a mid-budget action movie on this show, because it feels like all we talk about on this program are horror movies. So I'm glad that we can get some variety when it comes to the films that we discuss. So that will be next week's episode. I hope you'll join me for that. Until then, this has been the Real Takes podcast here on WSVC Radio. I'm your host, Dan Sisk, and we'll see you then.
Hey there, listeners. I'm Matt Boyer, station manager of WSVC Radio. If you like what you're listening to, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button to be notified with all of our updates. Every day, one of our shows will be releasing a new episode. Stick around and tune in.